Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly attract abundance into their lives, while others struggle in a constant state of lack, despite their best efforts? The answer might surprise you, and it has nothing to do with luck, background, or even how hard you work. What if I told you that abundance isn't something you chase after or eventually achieve, but rather a state of being that already exists within you, waiting to be awakened? Throughout human history, we've been conditioned to believe that prosperity is scarce, that there's not enough to go around, and that we must compete fiercely for our share. But has this perspective ever truly served you? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might fundamentally transform how you experience prosperity in every area of your life. The universe itself operates on principles of abundance. Look around you. The sun doesn't ration its light, flowers don't count their petals, and the ocean doesn't measure its waves. This infinite abundance isn't random, it flows from a single source. What spiritual masters have understood for centuries is that God, universal intelligence, or whatever name resonates with you, is not just one provider among many, but the only true source from which all good manifests in our lives. Has this ever happened to you? You work tirelessly, do everything right, yet still feel like you're swimming upstream against a current of limitation. That experience of scarcity isn't divinely ordained. It's manufactured by a mind disconnected from spiritual truth. The walls of lack you perceive aren't built by the universe. They're constructed by beliefs that have been programmed into your consciousness. What if the key to unlocking abundance isn't about changing your external circumstances, but rather shifting your internal state? What if prosperity isn't something you pursue, but something you embody? The ancient wisdom traditions have always taught that abundance flows not to those who desperately seek it, but through those who recognize it as their natural birthright. The profound shift occurs when you begin to realize that abundance isn't distant or separate from you. It's your original state. But how exactly does this recognition transform your everyday experience? And what practical steps can you take to align with this universal flow? The first step is recognizing that the abundance mindset isn't some abstract spiritual concept. It's a practical, transformative approach to living. When you begin to view yourself as intrinsically connected to the infinite source of all good, your perception shifts dramatically. You stop operating from a place of, "I need to get," and start functioning from, "I am already complete." This subtle yet profound shift changes everything from how you approach work and relationships to how you handle your finances and personal goals. If this perspective on abundance resonates with you, I'd love to hear what aspect touched you most deeply. Share in the comments below how you've experienced the contrast between scarcity thinking and abundance consciousness in your own life. Your stories create a powerful ripple effect that helps others recognize similar patterns in their journey. You know, I've noticed something remarkable about this community we're building together. Every time you engage with this content through your likes and comments, it doesn't just help the channel reach more people. It creates a collective field of higher consciousness around these principles. Your single click on that like button is actually an energetic affirmation that says, yes, abundance is our natural state, and I stand with this message. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider joining our growing community of abundance-minded individuals. Your subscription isn't just a notification setting, it's a declaration that you're committed to maintaining this higher vibrational perspective in your life. We're building something meaningful here together, one consciousness at a time. Now, returning to our exploration of abundance consciousness, let's examine how this shift begins to manifest in tangible ways. When you truly understand that scarcity is an illusion, a mental construct rather than an objective reality, you start noticing how this awareness affects your daily decisions. Fear-based choices begin to fade as trust-based actions take precedence. You find yourself moving through life with a sense of ease rather than desperate striving, But this doesn't mean becoming passive or detached from meaningful goals. Quite the opposite. You become more intentional and powerful in your creative expression because you're no longer limited by the false boundaries of not enough. This fundamental shift in perspective reveals one of the most transformative hidden truths about abundance. Money itself is not merely a physical object or a numerical entry in your bank account. At its essence, money is a divine idea, a powerful symbol of energy circulation designed to serve humanity's exchange of value. This revelation often creates a profound mindset shift for those who have struggled with their relationship to finances. Consider how we've been collectively programmed to view money through a distorted lens. Some see it as dirty or impure, something spiritually inferior. Others worship it as the ultimate goal, making it their master rather than their servant. Both extremes miss the sacred reality that money, in its purest form, is simply energy shaped to flow, to serve, and to expand good in all directions. When you recognize this divine principle behind the symbol, your entire relationship with abundance undergoes a remarkable transformation. The journey toward prosperity begins not with chasing higher income or better circumstances, but with a fundamental shift in consciousness. This internal revolution precedes any external manifestation of wealth. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that some people with modest means radiate a sense of richness and fulfillment, while others with substantial wealth live in a constant state of perceived lack? The difference isn't in their bank accounts, but in their internal relationship with abundance. The impact of this understanding reaches far beyond financial matters. It affects how you make decisions, how you approach opportunities, and how you experience the full spectrum of life's offerings. When your consciousness aligns with the truth that prosperity is your natural state, you begin operating from a place of overflow rather than deficiency. This doesn't mean ignoring practical realities or financial responsibilities. Rather, it means approaching them from a completely different energetic foundation. Behind the scenes of every financial transaction, career move, or investment decision lies this crucial question: am I operating from a consciousness of abundance or scarcity? The answer to this question determines not just the outcome, but the entire quality of your experience along the way. When you shift your consciousness first, external circumstances begin rearranging themselves to mirror your internal state, often in ways that seem miraculous or unexplainable through conventional thinking. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the practical ways this consciousness shift manifests in everyday life. The most fascinating aspect of abundance consciousness is how it affects your moment-to-moment choices and perceptions. When you genuinely recognize money as a divine idea rather than something to fear or worship, you begin handling it differently. You become a more conscious steward of this energy, directing it with intention rather than anxiety or attachment. Your decisions come from a place of creative possibility rather than fearful limitation. This doesn't mean that challenges simply disappear or that financial concerns are instantly resolved. What changes is your relationship to these experiences. You start viewing them as temporary conditions rather than defining realities, as opportunities for growth rather than confirmations of lack. This perspective shift alone can completely transform your life's trajectory. The revelations that emerge when you begin living from abundance consciousness often surprise even those who've spent years studying spiritual principles. There's a vast difference between intellectually understanding these concepts and embodying them as your lived experience. If what I'm sharing resonates with your own inner knowing, write in the comments, "Abundance is my natural state." This simple affirmation itself can be a powerful step toward aligning with the consciousness of true prosperity. What we're really exploring here is the profound architecture of what spiritual teachers call the consciousness of wealth. This isn't simply positive thinking or wishful imagining, it's a complete vibrational state of being that encompasses your thoughts, feelings, expectations, and deepest convictions about your place in the universe. This wealth consciousness creates a resonant field around you, characterized by sufficiency rather than lack, gratitude rather than entitlement, peace rather than anxiety, and openness rather than resistance. The blueprint of this consciousness reveals itself in ways both subtle and dramatic. You'll notice it in how you respond to unexpected expenses. Does panic immediately set in, or do you maintain a calm certainty that solutions will emerge? You'll observe it in your emotional reaction when others experience financial success. Does their prosperity trigger comparison and resentment, or genuine celebration? These internal responses aren't random personality traits. They're precise indicators of your wealth consciousness in action. Behind the scenes of every manifestation lies this universal principle: like attracts like. This isn't merely a spiritual concept, but operates as precisely as any law of physics. Your vibrational state, that combined frequency of your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and expectations, acts as a powerful magnetic field, drawing to you experiences that match your dominant energy. The revelation that often transforms people's journey is understanding that the universe responds not to your words or even your conscious intentions, but to your actual vibrational output. This explains why simply reciting positive affirmations often yields disappointing results. When you declare, "I am prosperous," while internally feeling broke and fearful, you're sending mixed signals to the universe. Your words say one thing, but your energetic broadcast communicates something entirely different. The universe doesn't hear your words, it feels your vibration. This hidden truth unlocks the mystery of why some people seem to effortlessly attract abundance while others struggle despite their best efforts. The transformation begins when you recognize that shifting your vibrational state isn't about forcing positive thoughts over negative ones. It's about honestly acknowledging your current state while gently, consistently realigning with the frequency of abundance. This realignment happens through numerous small decisions: choosing gratitude when complaint arises, selecting thoughts of sufficiency when lack appears, maintaining peace when financial challenges emerge. What makes this approach so powerful is its compounding effect. Each time you consciously shift from scarcity thinking to abundance consciousness, you strengthen the neural pathways that make this response more automatic. Over time, this mental and emotional rewiring creates profound changes in your external reality. The decisions you make, the opportunities you notice, the people you attract, all shift to reflect your evolving consciousness. The impact extends far beyond financial matters, influencing your relationships, creative expression, and even physical well-being. This happens because abundance consciousness isn't compartmentalized. It's a fundamental orientation toward life itself. When you genuinely believe in sufficiency rather than scarcity, you bring that same openness and trust to every aspect of your experience. Now, I want to explore the practical daily practices that strengthen and stabilize this consciousness of wealth. The journey toward embodying abundance consciousness involves more than intellectual understanding. It requires consistent inner work and tangible actions that reinforce your commitment to this new paradigm. What's fascinating is how simple adjustments to your daily routines can create powerful ripple effects in your vibrational state. One of the most transformative practices involves bringing conscious awareness to your relationship with money in everyday situations. Notice how you feel when paying bills, making purchases, or reviewing your financial statements. These seemingly mundane moments are actually powerful opportunities to practice abundance consciousness in real time. If you've been implementing any of these awareness practices in your own life, type "Vibration Matters" in the comments to share that you're actively working with these principles. Let's explore one of the most powerful revelations in the abundance journey, the creative force of your everyday language. Every word you speak is quite literally a seed planted in the fertile soil of universal consciousness. This isn't metaphorical, it's a precise description of how reality forms around us. Your words carry vibrational frequencies that ripple outward, organizing energy into patterns that eventually manifest as your lived experience. The transformation begins when you start treating your speech not as casual commentary, but as deliberate creation. Behind this principle lies an even deeper truth. Every thought is essentially an order placed with the universe. Your mind doesn't just passively observe reality, it actively creates it through the continuous stream of thoughts you entertain moment by moment. Think about the hidden power this gives you. When you consistently think thoughts of lack and limitation, you're literally instructing universal intelligence to bring you more experiences that match those thoughts. Conversely, when you discipline your mind to focus on abundance and possibility, you're redirecting that same creative force toward manifestations that reflect this higher frequency. What makes this understanding so revolutionary is recognizing that emotions aren't just fleeting feelings. They're concentrated packages of vibrational reality. An emotion is energy in motion, carrying specific frequencies that attract matching experiences. The journey toward mastery involves becoming aware of your emotional state, not just for psychological well-being, but as a deliberate practice in conscious creation. Each time you shift from fear to trust, from resentment to gratitude, from anxiety to peace, you're fundamentally altering what you'll attract into your life. This understanding reveals something profound about the very nature of creation itself. There is no lack in the divine source, none whatsoever. When we look at the fundamental design of the universe, we see systems built for abundance, not scarcity. A single apple seed doesn't produce just one apple. It creates a tree that bears thousands of apples, each containing seeds for thousands more trees. This principle of multiplication is woven into the very fabric of existence. The mindset shift happens when you recognize that divine creation is abundant by its very nature. Everything in the natural world demonstrates this truth, designed to multiply, expand, and flourish without limitation. The revelations come when you begin to see that scarcity isn't built into the system. It's a human construct, a perspective that contradicts the fundamental pattern of life itself. Consider the impact this understanding has on your daily decisions. When you truly internalize that there is no lack in the divine source, how differently might you approach challenges? Instead of asking, "How can I get more?" you begin asking, "How can I align more fully with the abundance that already exists?" This subtle but powerful reframing changes everything: your stress levels, your creative problem solving, your relationships with others, and your ability to recognize opportunities. The journey toward embodying this truth involves a fundamental rewiring of your perception. We've been conditioned to see limitation everywhere: limited resources, limited opportunities, limited time, limited energy. Yet behind the scenes of this apparent scarcity lies an infinite field of possibility waiting to be accessed through aligned consciousness. This isn't magical thinking, it's recognizing the actual design of the universe we inhabit. What's fascinating is observing how this principle manifests in the lives of those who genuinely understand it. They move through challenges with a different energy, not naive optimism, but grounded certainty that solutions exist, that pathways will open, that what's needed will emerge. They make decisions from a place of creative possibility rather than fearful protection. Their actions carry a confidence that comes from knowing they're working with, not against, the fundamental nature of reality. Now, I want to explore how this understanding transforms your relationship with the material world. When you recognize that your words are seeds, your thoughts are orders, and abundance is the natural state of divine creation. Your interaction with physical reality undergoes a profound shift. You begin to see the material world not as separate from consciousness, but as its direct expression, the visible manifestation of invisible causes. This perspective alters how you engage with everything from your physical environment to your financial resources. If you've experienced moments where you've witnessed the direct connection between your consciousness and external manifestation, share by writing "Consciousness Creates" in the comments below. The true alchemy of manifestation happens at the intersection of three powerful forces: thought, feeling, and vibration. When these elements fall into perfect alignment, something remarkable occurs. The soul becomes a pure, unobstructed channel through which abundance naturally flows. This alignment isn't something mystical or inaccessible. It's a practical state that you can cultivate through consistent inner work and awareness. Think about those rare moments when you've experienced perfect clarity about something, perhaps a decision, a creative project, or a life direction. In those moments, your thought, what you intellectually understood, your feeling, your emotional response, and your vibration, your energetic state, were all pointing in the same direction. There was no internal conflict, no contradiction between what you thought, what you felt, and what you embodied. This harmony is what creates the optimal conditions for manifestation. The revelation that transforms many people's journey is understanding that manifestation struggles often stem from misalignment between these three elements. You might intellectually affirm abundance while emotionally feeling lack. You might verbally declare prosperity while vibrationally broadcasting doubt. These contradictions create static in your manifestation channel, diluting your creative power and producing mixed results at best. The transformation begins when you commit to bringing these three aspects into coherence. This doesn't happen through force or pretending. It requires honest self-awareness and gentle realignment. When you discover thoughts that contradict your desires, you don't fight them, but compassionately redirect them. When emotions of lack arise, you don't suppress them, but lovingly transmute them. When your vibrational state feels heavy, you don't judge it, but consciously shift it through practices that elevate your frequency. Behind the scenes of every masterful manifestor is this hidden truth. They've learned to maintain coherence between what they think, feel, and vibrate. Their power comes not from magical abilities, but from internal integration. This integration creates a clear channel through which provision, whether in the form of money, opportunities, relationships, or creative inspiration, flows without obstruction. Intertwined with this alignment is another powerful force, faith, but not faith as it's commonly understood, not blind belief or hopeful wishing. True faith is invisible capital, a silent knowing that serves as the foundation for all genuine manifestation. This kind of faith doesn't plead or bargain with the universe. It simply knows with unshakable certainty that what is sought is already accomplished in non-physical form. The journey to developing this faith involves recognizing that it's not something you create through effort, but something you allow through surrender. Faith, in its purest form, is remembering what your soul already knows, that you are inseparably connected to the infinite source of all provision. This isn't something you have to convince yourself of. It's something you uncover as you remove the layers of doubt that have accumulated through worldly conditioning. What makes this invisible capital so powerful is that it operates whether or not external conditions support it. When you possess this quality of faith, you can stand in apparent emptiness and see fullness. You can face seeming limitation and perceive limitless possibility. You can confront what appears to be obstacle and recognize disguised opportunity. This isn't delusion, it's perception that transcends physical appearance to apprehend the deeper reality from which all physical manifestation emerges. The mindset shift occurs when you begin to value this invisible capital more than visible resources. You recognize that a person with unwavering faith and minimal external resources is actually wealthier than someone with abundant resources, but plagued by doubt and fear. This revelation completely transforms how you approach challenges, setbacks, and apparent lack. Instead of being defeated by circumstances, you draw upon your invisible capital, your unshakable knowing, and use it to transform those very circumstances. The impact of living from this state of alignment and faith extends far beyond material manifestation. It creates a profound sense of peace and certainty that permeates your entire life. Decisions become clearer, relationships become more authentic, creativity flows more freely, and synchronicities become more frequent. You begin operating from a different dimension of causation, influencing reality from the inside out, rather than being buffeted by it from the outside in. Now, I want to explore the practical methods for maintaining this alignment and strengthening this faith during challenging times. The real mastery comes not in understanding these principles intellectually, but in embodying them when facing real-world pressures that seem to contradict them. If you've experienced moments when your faith has carried you through seemingly impossible circumstances, type "Faith is my capital" in the comments to share your recognition of this profound truth. One of the most powerful tools in conscious creation is visualization, but not as it's commonly taught. The transformation happens when you understand that visualization isn't merely a mental technique, but a profound spiritual capacity. Effective visualization is literally seeing with the eyes of your soul what has not yet materialized in physical form, with absolute certainty that manifestation is inevitable. This isn't imagination in the conventional sense. It's perception operating on a different frequency of reality. Think about the architect who sees the completed building in their mind before the first stone is laid, or the artist who perceives the finished painting before brush touches canvas. This same creative principle operates in every aspect of life. The revelation that changes everything is understanding that visualization isn't creating something from nothing. It's tuning into what already exists in potential form, waiting for you to give it direction and energy. What makes visualization truly effective isn't duration or even clarity of image, but the feeling tone that accompanies it. When you visualize with emotional intensity, with the genuine feeling of already possessing or experiencing what you desire, you create a powerful resonance that accelerates manifestation. This emotional component is what transforms visualization from a mental exercise into a creative act of communion with universal intelligence. Behind the scenes of every great manifester is this hidden truth. They've mastered the art of feeling the future as present reality. They don't visualize prosperity as a distant possibility, but experience it as current fact. They don't imagine health as something to attain, but embody it as their natural state. This subtle distinction makes all the difference in the impact of visualization practice. You're not trying to convince the universe to give you something. You're aligning with what already exists in non-physical form. Visualization is literally the language of the soul, the way your innermost being communicates with the formless energy of creation. Just as verbal language uses words to convey meaning, visual language uses images to transmit creative intent. This communication is happening constantly, whether you're conscious of it or not. Every image you hold in your mind, accompanied by strong emotion, is essentially a blueprint being transmitted to the universe, instructing energy what form to take. The journey toward mastering this language involves becoming more intentional about the images you habitually entertain. The mindset shift occurs when you recognize that you're always visualizing. The question is simply whether you're doing so consciously or by default. Most people unconsciously visualize worst-case scenarios, mentally rehearsing problems and limitations. The transformation begins when you redirect this same creative power toward what you want to experience, rather than what you fear or expect based on past patterns. What makes this practice so revolutionary is that it bypasses the logical mind that often creates resistance through doubt and overthinking. When you visualize with emotional intensity, you're communicating directly from soul to source, without the interference of mental chatter. This direct channel allows for manifestations that might seem impossible when viewed through the lens of conventional thinking or past experience. The revelations come as you begin working with this practice consistently. You'll notice synchronicities increasing, ideas arriving precisely when needed, and opportunities appearing that perfectly align with what you've been visualizing. These aren't coincidences, but direct reflections of your soul's communication with the creative field of infinite possibility. Your visualization is literally reorganizing energy to match your blueprint. A common misconception that blocks effective visualization is believing that longer sessions produce better results. Quality matters far more than quantity. 5 minutes of deeply felt, emotionally charged visualization carries more creative power than an hour of half-hearted mental pictures. The key is immersion, fully entering the experience in your imagination as if it were happening now, engaging all your senses, feeling the emotions, and inhabiting the reality you're creating. Now, I want to explore the practical applications of visualization in everyday circumstances. This isn't just about creating prosperity in abstract terms. It's about using this soul language to navigate specific challenges, enhance relationships, improve health outcomes, and transform limiting beliefs into expansive possibilities. Visualization becomes even more powerful when applied with precision to tangible situations rather than kept as a general manifestation practice. The journey of mastering visualization involves recognizing that you're not creating images of what you hope might happen. You're receiving and clarifying images of what's already complete in non-physical form. If you've been experimenting with visualization as your soul's creative language, share by writing "I speak in images" in the comments below. The creative power of your spoken word extends far beyond casual conversation. It quite literally shapes the fabric of your reality. Every syllable you utter carries vibrational frequencies that ripple through the quantum field, organizing energy and setting patterns in motion. This isn't mystical thinking. It's acknowledging the fundamental nature of sound as a creative force. When you speak, you're not just expressing thoughts, you're sowing seeds into the invisible field of creation that will eventually bear fruit corresponding to their nature. Behind the scenes of every transformative journey is this revelation: becoming intensely conscious of your speech patterns. Most people speak habitually, unconsciously echoing collective thought patterns or personal conditioning without recognizing the creative impact of their words. They casually make statements like, "I never have enough," "Why does everything have to be so hard?" or "That's just my luck," without understanding that these aren't merely descriptions of reality. They're instructions to the universe about what reality to manifest. The mindset shift happens when you begin treating every word as sacred, as a declaration that sets causes in motion. This doesn't mean becoming artificially positive or suppressing authentic feelings. It means developing a heightened awareness of the creative nature of speech and choosing words that align with your deepest intentions. Rather than momentary frustrations or fears, the transformation is remarkable when you start speaking deliberately from your desired state rather than your current circumstances. What makes this particularly powerful is understanding that the universe doesn't simply respond to what you verbally request. It responds to what you energetically broadcast. This explains the common disconnect between what people say they want and what actually manifests in their lives. You might verbally affirm prosperity while internally vibrating at the frequency of anxiety about money. You might speak of health while emotionally resonating with fear of illness. You might declare confidence while energetically transmitting self-doubt. The journey toward mastery involves bringing your spoken word into alignment with your inner energetic state. This alignment creates coherence, a powerful, focused signal that the universe can respond to with clarity. Without this coherence, your creative energy scatters in multiple directions, producing mixed or diluted results at best. The hidden truth is that manifestation struggles often stem not from lack of positive speech, but from lack of energetic congruence with that speech. Consider the impact this understanding has on your everyday interactions. When you make a promise, declare an intention, or even engage in casual conversation, you're not just exchanging information, you're participating in a creative act. Your words are literally programming your experience. This revelation transforms ordinary conversations into sacred opportunities for conscious creation. Each declaration becomes a seed planted in the garden of your life. The revelations emerge as you begin monitoring the gap between what you say and what you truly feel. Most people maintain significant incongruence between their speech and their inner state, creating interference in their manifestation field. The transformation begins when you commit to closing this gap, either by adjusting your speech to honestly reflect your current state or, more powerfully, by shifting your inner state to match elevated speech. What's fascinating is how this practice extends beyond self-talk to influence every relational dynamic in your life. How you speak about others, how you respond to challenges, how you describe past experiences. All of these verbal expressions are creative acts that shape your ongoing experience. The spiritual discipline involves catching yourself in moments of negative declaration and consciously redirecting towards speech that reflects your highest truth rather than temporary perception. The journey of mastering the creative power of speech involves understanding that words aren't just descriptive, they're prescriptive. They don't just describe what is, they help determine what will be. This subtle distinction completely transforms your relationship with language. You begin choosing words not just for their communicative clarity, but for their creative impact. You select expressions not just for their accuracy in describing current conditions, but for their power in establishing future conditions. Now, I want to explore the practical methods for becoming more conscious of your speech patterns and bringing them into alignment with your deepest intentions. This isn't about mechanical repetition of affirmations, but about cultivating genuine congruence between your words, your energy, and your desires. The mastery comes in speaking with such authenticity and conviction that there's zero contradiction between what you say and what you energetically transmit. If you've noticed the connection between your habitual speech patterns and what manifests in your life, share by writing "My words create" in the comments below. One of the most transformative concepts in the abundance journey is the spiritual understanding of giving. For centuries, religious traditions have taught the practice of tithing, giving a portion of your income to support spiritual work. But the revelation that changes everything is recognizing that true spiritual tithing isn't about mathematical obligation or moral duty. It's a profound act of consciousness, a declaration that you recognize the ultimate source of all your good. When you give from this elevated awareness, something remarkable happens. The act transcends transaction and becomes transformation. You're not paying an external entity or fulfilling a religious requirement. You're participating in the circular flow of universal abundance, acknowledging that everything you receive ultimately comes from the divine source. This shift in perspective completely reinvents your relationship with giving. Behind the scenes of truly effective giving is this hidden truth. The consciousness behind your giving determines its creative power. When you give grudgingly from guilt, fear, or pressure, you're energetically contradicting the very abundance you seek to attract. But when you give joyfully, From gratitude, recognition, and trust in the source, you create a vibrational signature that resonates with the fundamental nature of abundance itself. The journey toward mastery involves a complete reversal of conventional thinking about giving. The world teaches that giving diminishes your resources. You have less after giving than before. But spiritual understanding reveals the paradox. Genuine giving actually multiplies your good. This isn't magical thinking. It's acknowledging how energy operates in an interconnected universe. What you circulate returns. What you freely release creates space for greater inflow. What makes this principle so revolutionary is that it contradicts our most basic conditioning about material resources. We've been programmed to believe that accumulation equals security, that holding tightly to what we have protects us from lack. The revelation that transforms lives is discovering that this grasping actually creates energetic constriction, while generous circulation creates expansion. The very act you feared would impoverish you becomes the catalyst for unprecedented abundance. Consider the impact this understanding has on everyday decisions about resources. When you view giving through this lens, it's no longer about obligation or sacrifice, but about participation in universal flow. Each act of conscious giving becomes not a deduction, but an investment in the field of infinite possibility. You're not losing anything. You're circulating energy in ways that allow it to return multiplied. The mindset shift happens when you recognize that giving doesn't empty your life. It unlocks reservoirs of good that remained inaccessible through defensive withholding. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's a practical principle that manifests in tangible ways. Those who master conscious giving often report experiencing unexpected income, surprising opportunities, and resources arriving through channels they never anticipated. What's fascinating is observing the precise correlation between how you give and what you receive. The quality of your giving, the consciousness behind it, the energy accompanying it, the intention infusing it, directly impacts what returns to you. This isn't because the universe is judging your motives, but because like energy attracts like results. Giving from lack perpetuates lack. Giving from fullness generates more fullness. The journey of mastering spiritual giving involves releasing all transactional thinking. Many approach giving with subtle expectation. I'll give this so I can get that. This undermines the very principle of circulation. True spiritual giving requires complete detachment from specific outcomes while maintaining absolute trust in the principle of return. You give not to get, but because giving itself is the natural expression of abundance consciousness. The revelations emerge as you begin practicing this principle consistently. You'll notice that your relationship with money fundamentally shifts. The grip of fear loosens as you experience firsthand that circulation, not accumulation, creates true financial freedom. You'll find yourself making giving decisions from an entirely different place, not from calculation or obligation, but from inspired recognition of where your resources can create the greatest good. Now, I want to explore the practical methods for integrating conscious giving into your daily life. This extends far beyond formal tithing to encompass every resource at your disposal: your time, attention, talents, knowledge, and material possessions. The transformation occurs when giving becomes not something you do periodically, but a fundamental orientation to life itself. A continuous recognition that you are here not merely to receive, but to circulate divine good. The journey toward embodying this principle involves examining all the subtle ways fear creates resistance to giving. Many people experience internal friction around giving, anxiety about having enough, uncertainty about worthy recipients, concern about being taken advantage of. These fears reveal places where abundance consciousness remains incomplete. Working through these resistances becomes a powerful spiritual practice that accelerates your evolution. If you've experienced the paradoxical truth that giving generously has somehow created more abundance in your life rather than less, share by writing "Giving Multiplies" in the comments below. One of the most profound revelations on the abundance journey is understanding the hidden role of guilt in blocking your prosperity. This invisible barrier operates more powerfully than any external limitation, creating an energetic resistance to receiving that persists despite your conscious desires or efforts. Many struggle to manifest abundance, not because they lack the right techniques or strategies, but because at a fundamental level, they don't feel worthy of receiving good in its fullness. This wounded relationship with receiving has deep roots. From childhood, many of us absorb subtle messages that associate prosperity with selfishness, that elevate sacrifice over sufficiency, that glorify struggle over ease. Religious teachings are often misinterpreted to suggest that spiritual advancement requires material limitation. Cultural narratives frequently portray wealth as inherently corrupting. These influences create a complex psychological and energetic knot. You consciously desire abundance, while subconsciously feeling guilty for wanting it. The transformation begins when you recognize this internal conflict. Behind the scenes of every abundance block is this fundamental incongruence, wanting more while feeling unworthy of having more. The breakthrough moment comes when you realize that this guilt isn't protecting your spiritual development. It's actually hindering the full expression of your divine nature. True abundance isn't about accumulating resources for ego gratification. It's about allowing yourself to be a clear channel for the infinite good that seeks expression through you. What makes this healing journey so revolutionary is discovering that your resistance to receiving abundance isn't humility. It's a form of spiritual misunderstanding. The divine source doesn't withhold good as a test or a punishment. The infinite doesn't operate from scarcity or limitation. Any belief that suggests you must choose between spiritual fulfillment and material well-being fundamentally misrepresents the nature of creation itself. The mindset shift happens when you embrace this liberating truth. God does not want you to live in limitation. This isn't wishful thinking or prosperity gospel. It's recognizing the essential nature of the creative force that permeates the universe. Look at the natural world. Do you see the principle of limitation expressed anywhere? Does the sun ration its light? Does the ocean measure its waves? Does the earth count the blades of grass? It will grow. All of creation demonstrates the principle of lavish abundance, of overflowing expression, of unrestricted giving. The journey toward embodying this truth involves a deep examination of your beliefs about worthiness. Many carry an unconscious conviction that they must earn abundance through struggle, sacrifice, or extraordinary achievement. This earning mentality creates a fundamental misalignment with the principle of grace, the understanding that good flows not because you've earned it, but because giving is the nature of the source. Your worthiness isn't achieved, it's inherent in your very existence as an expression of divine consciousness. The revelation that transforms lives is recognizing that you were not created for scarcity, but to express the fullness that already dwells within you. Your natural state isn't limitation, but expansion. Your divine blueprint isn't restriction, but expression. When you truly internalize this understanding, receiving becomes not a guilty pleasure, but a sacred responsibility. An acknowledgement that allowing good to flow to you enables greater good to flow through you. Consider the impact this shift in perspective has on your everyday relationship with abundance. When you release guilt about receiving, you open energetic pathways that have remained constricted. Opportunities that seemed blocked suddenly appear. Resources that appeared limited expand. Relationships that felt strained transform. This isn't because external reality has changed, but because your receptivity to good has fundamentally altered. What's fascinating is observing how this healing transforms not just your financial reality, but every aspect of life. The same guilt that blocks financial flow often restricts the receiving of love, appreciation, support, rest, and joy. The journey toward healing your relationship with material abundance inevitably heals your capacity to receive in all dimensions of experience. This holistic transformation reveals the interconnected nature of all abundance. The revelations emerge as you begin practicing conscious receiving without apology or explanation. Many have been conditioned to deflect compliments, minimize achievements, downplay blessings, and qualify successes. These seemingly modest responses actually broadcast to the universe, "I'm uncomfortable receiving." Practicing clean, grateful acceptance becomes a powerful spiritual discipline that realigns your energy with the natural flow of abundance. Now, I want to explore the practical methods for healing the wounded relationship with receiving. This inner work involves identifying specific guilt patterns, tracing them to their origins, and consciously replacing them with new beliefs that align with spiritual truth. The transformation occurs when receiving becomes not a source of discomfort, but a natural expression of your participation in the divine flow of life. If you've recognized how guilt or unworthiness has been silently blocking your ability to receive abundance, share by writing "worthy of receiving" in the comments below. One of the most persistent myths in spiritual circles is the belief that material abundance somehow diminishes spiritual advancement, that to be truly enlightened, one must embrace material simplicity or even poverty. This misunderstanding has created unnecessary suffering and limitation for countless sincere seekers. The revelation that liberates is understanding that receiving abundantly doesn't make you less spiritual, quite the opposite. It actually makes you more available to serve, create, and share in ways that would be impossible from a place of lack. This understanding represents a profound paradigm shift in spiritual consciousness. Behind the scenes of this transformation is recognizing the artificial division that's been created between the material and spiritual realms. In truth, these aren't separate or opposing dimensions, they're different expressions of the same divine reality. Material abundance, when approached with consciousness, becomes not an obstacle to spiritual realization, but a vehicle for it, a tangible manifestation of divine provision flowing through you and extending to others. The journey toward embodying this truth involves examining the subtle ways you might be clinging to lack as a badge of spiritual honor. Many unconsciously believe that their struggles or limitations somehow make them more virtuous, more deserving, more spiritually advanced. This mindset creates an identity investment in scarcity that paradoxically blocks the very abundance that would enable greater service and contribution. The breakthrough comes when you recognize that limiting your receiving doesn't serve the world. It restricts what you can offer it. What makes this understanding so revolutionary is how it reframes your entire relationship with abundance. Receiving fully becomes not a selfish act, but a sacred responsibility. When you allow prosperity to flow to you without resistance or apology, you become a more powerful channel for good in every dimension. Your generosity expands, your creative contributions increase, your capacity to support causes you believe in multiplies, your ability to be present for others without depletion strengthens. None of this is possible when you're operating from scarcity or survival consciousness. The transformation extends beyond material resources to encompass your relationship with work itself. Another profound revelation on the abundance journey is understanding that work, in its highest essence, is not a burden or punishment, but a sacred expression, an opportunity to manifest your inner life in the outer world. This perspective completely reinvents how you approach your daily activities and career path. For centuries, work has been framed through the lens of struggle, obligation, and necessary sacrifice. The cultural narrative suggests that work is something we endure to earn a living, a price we pay for survival. But this fundamental misunderstanding disconnects us from the creative, expressive potential of our daily activities. The mindset shift happens when you recognize work not as something separate from your spiritual life, but as a primary vehicle for it, a way to bring your unique gifts into tangible form. Consider the impact this shift in perspective has on your everyday experience. When you approach work as burden, you resist it energetically, creating friction that drains your vitality and blocks creative flow. But when you approach the same activities as sacred expression, resistance dissolves. You access deeper reserves of energy. Time passes differently. Solutions emerge more readily. Synchronicities increase. This isn't because the work itself has changed, but because your relationship with it has fundamentally transformed. What's fascinating is observing how this elevated understanding of work naturally aligns you with greater abundance. When work becomes expression rather than obligation, your creativity flourishes. When creativity flourishes, value increases. When value increases, prosperity follows, not as the primary goal, but as the natural byproduct of aligned expression. The spiritual understanding of work doesn't diminish material success. It creates the optimal conditions for it while ensuring it remains in proper perspective. The revelations emerge as you begin practicing this consciousness in your daily work activities. Whether in a career you love or one that currently feels misaligned, even in situations that appear limiting, you can begin infusing your efforts with the energy of expression rather than obligation. This subtle but powerful shift immediately alters your experience and begins attracting opportunities that better match your authentic gifts and purpose. Behind every masterful manifester is this hidden truth. They've transformed their relationship with both receiving and giving, with both abundance and work. They understand that these elements aren't opposing forces, but complementary aspects of the same divine flow. Receiving abundantly enables more generous giving. Approaching work as sacred expression naturally increases its value and impact. This integrated understanding creates a harmonious relationship with the entire cycle of abundance. Now, I want to explore how these transformative understandings practically reshape your daily decisions and long-term life path. When you genuinely embrace abundance as spiritual and work as sacred, your entire approach to career choices, financial management, time allocation, and resource sharing undergoes a revolution that aligns you more fully with your authentic purpose and highest contribution. If you've experienced moments of recognizing that your work can be a form of spiritual expression rather than just a means of earning money, share by writing "sacred work" in the comments below. When you approach work with the correct consciousness, something extraordinary happens. It transcends mere labor and becomes a prayer in motion. This isn't poetic metaphor, but practical spiritual reality. Every task, regardless of its apparent significance or social status, becomes a sacred act of creation when performed with presence, integrity, and recognition of its deeper purpose. The cashier ringing up groceries, the executive making strategic decisions, the artist creating a masterpiece, the parent preparing a meal, all can be engaged in the same essential spiritual activity when approached with awakened awareness. This transformation in consciousness completely reinvents the work experience. Behind the scenes of this shift is the recognition that work isn't just about producing external results. It's about expressing inner qualities. When you bring full attention, care, and excellence to any task, regardless of whether anyone notices or appreciates it, you're participating in a form of worship, honoring the creative force that flows through you. This elevates even the most mundane activities into opportunities for spiritual practice and alignment with universal principles. The revelation that changes everything is understanding that your essential value doesn't come from what you do, but from who you are. The world has conditioned us to derive our identity and worth primarily from our occupation or achievements. This creates enormous pressure and anxiety, tying our sense of security and significance to external roles that can change or disappear. The breakthrough comes when you recognize that your true worth is inherent and unchangeable, not dependent on position, performance, or production. What makes this understanding so revolutionary is the freedom it creates. When you recognize that work is not the source of your sustenance, that God or universal intelligence is the only true source, your relationship with your job or business fundamentally shifts. Your specific occupation becomes not the origin of your supply, but merely one channel through which provision flows. This doesn't diminish the importance of excellent work, but places it in proper perspective. If one channel closes, another will open because the source remains constant and inexhaustible. Consider the impact this perspective has on everyday decision-making. When you believe your job or business is your source, fear dominates. You cling to positions that no longer serve your growth. You tolerate toxic environments out of financial insecurity. You compromise integrity for advancement. You resist necessary changes out of terror of disrupting your income. But when you recognize that these are merely channels, not sources, courage emerges. You can make decisions based on purpose and integrity rather than desperation and survival. The mindset shift creates an entirely different relationship with work challenges. When difficulties arise, a project fails, a business struggles, a position is eliminated, most people experience these situations as threats to their very survival because they've confused the channel with the source. But with awakened consciousness, you recognize these as transitions between channels, not disruptions of the source itself. This understanding doesn't eliminate practical concerns, but transforms how you respond to them. From panic to trust, from desperation to creativity. Behind the scenes of every person who navigates career transitions with unusual grace is this hidden truth. They've recognized the distinction between source and channel. They know that their provision doesn't depend on a specific job, company, industry, or even business model. It depends on their connection to and trust in the infinite source that expresses through countless channels. This creates remarkable resilience and adaptability in an increasingly unpredictable economic landscape. What's fascinating is observing how this shifted perspective actually enhances work performance and results. When you're no longer operating from desperate attachment to outcomes, creativity flourishes. When you're not gripping your job or business with fear, intuition flows more freely. When you trust in the constancy of the source, you make bolder, more innovative decisions. The paradox is that releasing your job or business as your source actually makes you more effective within it. The journey toward embodying this truth involves examining all the subtle ways you've become dependent on specific channels while forgetting the source behind them. Many unknowingly worship their job, career, company, or business model, investing it with power and significance that rightfully belongs only to the divine source. This misplaced devotion creates not only spiritual misalignment, but practical vulnerability when inevitable changes occur in these temporary forms. Now I want to explore the practical methods for maintaining this elevated consciousness during everyday work activities. This isn't about adopting a passive approach to career development or business growth, quite the opposite. It's about engaging fully in your work while simultaneously maintaining the awareness that authenticates it as spiritual practice rather than mere economic activity. If you've experienced moments when you sensed that your work was something more than just earning a living, when it felt like a form of prayer, service, or devotion regardless of the specific task, share by writing "Divine Channel" in the comments below. One of the most profound universal principles governing abundance is what spiritual teachers call the law of the circle. This cosmic law operates with mathematical precision in every dimension of life. Everything you emit, every thought, word, action, and emotion makes a complete circle and eventually returns to you in similar form, multiplied. This isn't mystical wishful thinking, but a principle as reliable as gravity, though operating on a more subtle energetic plane. Your life experience isn't happening to you randomly, it's returning to you systematically based on what you've consciously or unconsciously broadcast. This revelation completely transforms how you understand cause and effect in your life. Behind the scenes of every manifestation, whether desired or unwanted, is this hidden truth. You are not merely experiencing reality, you are continuously creating it through what you send into the field of life. The quality of energy you emit determines the quality of experience that returns to you, not as punishment or reward, but as the natural consequence of an intelligent, responsive universe that mirrors back to you your own dominant vibration. The journey toward mastery involves becoming intensely conscious of what you're emitting moment by moment. Most people focus exclusively on external actions while remaining oblivious to the thoughts, judgments, expectations, and emotional frequencies they're constantly broadcasting. The breakthrough comes when you recognize that these invisible emissions are actually more powerful in determining what circles back to you than your visible behaviors. Your inner state is continuously creating your outer reality through this circular law. What makes this understanding so revolutionary is how it places creative control firmly in your hands. When you truly comprehend that everything returns, multiplied, you become extraordinarily mindful about what you put into circulation. The offhand criticism, the unconscious judgment, the habitual worry, the persistent complaint, all of these seemingly insignificant emissions become seeds that will inevitably return as harvest. This awareness creates a profound sense of responsibility and intentionality about your mental and emotional output. The transformation is particularly powerful when applied to your financial consciousness. Many people habitually emit frequencies of lack, struggle, or resentment around money without realizing they're programming the law of the circle to bring more of these experiences. The shift happens when you consciously choose to emit generosity instead of hoarding, appreciation instead of criticism, trust instead of anxiety. These elevated emissions set in motion entirely different returns that manifest as unexpected provision, synchronistic opportunities, and creative solutions. Interwoven with this understanding is another fundamental principle. Prosperity simply cannot flourish in ungrateful ground. Gratitude is not merely a pleasant emotion or social nicety. It's a powerful creative force that literally fertilizes the field of infinite possibility. When you practice genuine gratitude, you're not just acknowledging what you've received, you're actively creating the energetic conditions for receiving more. This isn't because the universe rewards your gratitude, but because gratitude itself is the frequency that aligns you with abundance. Consider the profound impact this understanding has on your everyday experience. When you approach life with consistent gratitude, you activate a remarkable alchemy. The ordinary transforms into the sacred before your eyes. The simple meal becomes a feast. The basic shelter becomes a sanctuary. The modest income becomes sufficient provision. This transformation isn't about lowering your aspirations, it's about elevating your perception to recognize the abundance that already surrounds you, which paradoxically opens the channel for even greater manifestation. The mindset shift creates an entirely different relationship with what you currently have versus what you desire to have. Most people live in a continuous state of postponed appreciation. I'll be grateful when I have more money, a better job, the dream house, the ideal relationship. This creates an energetic stance of ingratitude in the present, which ironically blocks the very things you're waiting to appreciate. The breakthrough comes when you reverse this pattern, being genuinely grateful now, regardless of external circumstances, which activates the law of the circle to bring more experiences worthy of gratitude. What's fascinating is observing how these two principles work together in perfect harmony. Gratitude is one of the highest frequencies you can emit into the circle of life, and according to the law of the circle, it must return to you multiplied. This explains why the most demonstrably grateful people often experience what appears to be extraordinary luck or blessing. They've simply mastered, whether consciously or intuitively, the art of emitting the precise frequency that returns as abundant manifestation. The journey toward embodying these principles involves examining all the subtle ways you might be operating in contradiction to them. Many people unconsciously sabotage their prosperity by emitting mixed signals: conscious gratitude, contradicted by unconscious complaint, intentional generosity, undermined by subtle resentment, deliberate trust, overshadowed by persistent worry. Creating coherence between your conscious intentions and your unconscious emissions becomes a powerful spiritual practice that aligns you fully with the creative potential of these universal laws. Now, I want to explore the practical methods for working with the law of the circle in your daily decisions. This isn't about mechanical techniques, but about developing heightened awareness of what you're continuously putting into circulation through your thoughts, words, and actions, recognizing that these aren't merely expressions, but creations that will inevitably return to you through this perfect circular law. If you've noticed this circular principle operating in your own life, where what you've put out has clearly returned to you in multiplied form, whether positively or negatively, share by writing "Circle of Life" in the comments below. The most profound shifts in abundance consciousness happens when you recognize that gratitude isn't merely a polite response to receiving something good. It's actually a creative force that precedes and makes possible the very blessings you desire. This revolutionary understanding completely inverts the conventional relationship with gratitude. Most people believe the sequence is receive something good, then feel grateful. But spiritual masters throughout history have understood that the true sequence is feel genuine gratitude, then receive something good. This isn't magical thinking, it's understanding the vibrational mechanics of manifestation. Gratitude creates a specific frequency in your energetic field that aligns you with the natural flow of abundance. It's quite literally the emotional signature of prosperity consciousness. When you embody genuine gratitude, you're tuning your entire being to the exact frequency where manifestation occurs most readily and resistance dissolves most completely. Behind the scenes of every masterful manifester is this hidden truth. They don't wait for external conditions to change before feeling grateful. They've discovered that gratitude isn't dependent on circumstances. It's a creative choice available regardless of current appearances. This perspective transforms gratitude from a passive reaction into an active creative force, a powerful tool for conscious manifestation rather than simply an appropriate response after the fact. You see, the journey toward embodying this truth involves a fundamental retraining of your emotional patterns. Most people have conditioned themselves to make gratitude conditional. I'll feel grateful when. This creates an energetic stance of waiting and wanting rather than having and creating. The breakthrough comes when you develop the capacity to feel genuine gratitude, independent of external conditions. To choose gratitude as your primary emotional tone, not because of what you have, but because of who you are. What makes this understanding so transformative is how it extends into the realm of what spiritual teachers call anticipatory gratitude. the practice of giving thanks for what you don't yet see as if it has already manifested. This isn't pretending or engaging in denial about current conditions. It's consciously aligning your emotional state with the future you're calling into being, recognizing that gratitude for the unseen is one of the highest expressions of faith and one of the most powerful creative forces available to you. Consider Jesus before multiplying the loaves and fishes. He didn't plead for more food or focus on the apparent lack. Scripture tells us he looked up to heaven and gave thanks before the miracle occurred. This anticipatory gratitude wasn't just religious protocol, it was the actual creative mechanism that allowed the multiplication to manifest. He was demonstrating a universal principle. Thanksgiving precedes the miracle. Gratitude comes before the manifestation. The mindset shift creates an entirely different relationship with the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Most people experience this gap with frustration, impatience, or anxiety, emotional states that actually repel the very things they desire. But when you practice anticipatory gratitude, you fill this gap with the most powerful creative energy possible. You're essentially telling the universe, I'm so certain this is coming that I'm giving thanks for it now, before any evidence appears. What's fascinating is observing how this practice actually accelerates manifestation. When you thank in advance for the job, the relationship, the healing, the financial breakthrough, genuinely feeling the gratitude as if it has already happened, you create an energetic blueprint that the universe naturally moves to fill. This isn't because gratitude earns you the blessing, but because gratitude itself is the emotional frequency most closely aligned with the abundance you seek to experience. The revelations emerge as you begin practicing this principle consistently. You'll notice that anticipatory gratitude creates a profound sense of peace and certainty that transcends current circumstances. This isn't denial or avoidance of reality, it's operating from a deeper reality, recognizing that the unseen realm of potential and possibility is actually more real and more powerful than the temporary conditions you currently observe. The journey of mastering. Anticipatory gratitude involves developing what might be called spiritual senses, the capacity to perceive and respond to what exists in potential before it manifests in form. This is a skill that strengthens with practice. Initially, it might feel like pretending or affirmation, but as you persist, something remarkable happens. Your capacity to genuinely feel grateful for the unseen becomes as natural as feeling grateful for what's right before your eyes. Behind every seemingly miraculous manifestation is this spiritual technology. Someone chose to feel deep gratitude for something that had no physical evidence yet. They weren't just mechanically repeating affirmations or visualizing outcomes. They were actually generating the authentic emotional frequency of having already received. This emotional authenticity is what distinguishes effective practice from merely going through spiritual motions. Now, I want to explore the practical methods for cultivating authentic, anticipatory gratitude in your daily life. This isn't about forcing positive emotions or denying legitimate challenges. It's about developing the spiritual capacity to respond to a deeper reality than what your physical senses currently report, to commune with the completed vision of what is still unfolding in the realm of time and space. If you've experienced moments when you felt genuinely thankful for something before it physically manifested, and then watched in amazement as it appeared in your life, share by writing "Gratitude Creates" in the comments below. In our constantly connected, noise-filled world, we've largely forgotten one of the most powerful gateways to abundance: sacred silence. But this isn't about simply reducing external noise or creating a quiet environment. The revelation that transforms consciousness is understanding that silence is not merely the absence of sound, it is the actual presence of God, the divine intelligence that permeates all creation. When properly understood and experienced, silence becomes the fertile ground where your consciousness becomes supremely receptive to divine ideas, inspirations, and guidance that no amount of external information or strategizing could provide. This perspective completely reinvents your relationship with quiet moments. Behind the scenes of every profound spiritual awakening and creative breakthrough is this hidden truth. The most powerful transformations don't happen through constant activity and endless input, but through intervals of deep, receptive silence. In these spaces of inner stillness, the chatter of the conditioned mind temporarily subsides, allowing you to access wisdom and insight from a much deeper source than intellectual analysis or accumulated knowledge. The journey toward embracing silence as a pathway to abundance involves confronting the widespread discomfort with stillness that characterizes modern life. Most people unconsciously avoid silence, filling every moment with stimulation, conversation, entertainment, information, social media, background noise. This constant input creates a cluttered mental environment where the subtle promptings of intuition and divine guidance simply cannot be heard. The breakthrough comes when you recognize silence not as empty space to be filled, but as pregnant fullness to be received. What makes this understanding so revolutionary is recognizing that true wealth, authentic, lasting abundance in all its forms, is born first in the soul, not in external circumstances or strategies. The soul can only conceive this wealth in the fertile void of silence, where the distractions of surface concerns temporarily dissolve. In the sacred space of true inner silence, you reconnect with what might be called your original prosperity, the inherent fullness that exists prior to all external conditions and remains untouched by temporary appearances of lack. Consider the profound impact this understanding has on your approach to creating abundance. When facing financial challenges or material lack, the conventional response is more action, more strategy, more effort. But what if the most powerful response is first entering the silence, creating space for divine intelligence to reveal solutions and pathways that your busy mind simply cannot access? This doesn't negate appropriate action, but ensures that your actions flow from inspired wisdom rather than anxious striving. The mindset shift creates an entirely different relationship with the moments between your activities. Most people view these intervals merely as rest or recovery before returning to real productivity. But with awakened consciousness, you recognize these moments of silence as potentially the most generative and creative periods of your day, the precise times when the insights, solutions, and divine ideas that lead to true abundance are most likely to emerge. What's fascinating is observing how this practice transforms your decision-making and problem-solving capacities. When you learn to enter the silence before responding to challenges, remarkable shifts occur. Solutions appear that weren't visible through logical analysis. Resources emerge from unexpected sources. Synchronicities increase. Creative inspirations arrive that transcend conventional thinking. These aren't random occurrences, but natural results of accessing the infinite intelligence that becomes available in authentic silence. The revelations emerge as you begin practicing intentional silence as part of your abundance journey. You'll discover that many of the limitations you've perceived as external are actually maintained by internal noise, the constant recycling of worried thoughts, limiting beliefs, and habitual perspectives. When this mental chatter temporarily subsides in true silence, you experience moments of liberation from these constraints, revealing possibilities that were always present but obscured by mental static. Behind every great fortune, breakthrough innovation, or extraordinary achievement is this spiritual technology. Someone learned to access the profound creativity and wisdom available in the silent depths of being. They didn't just work harder than others, They accessed a different quality of inspiration by creating space for it. They didn't just analyze problems more thoroughly, they allowed solutions to emerge from beyond analytical thinking. This capacity to receive in silence often differentiates those who achieve lasting success from those who merely strive. The journey of cultivating this relationship with silence involves developing what contemplative traditions call the witness consciousness, the capacity to observe your own mental activity without being completely identified with it. As you strengthen this awareness, you discover that beneath the surface agitation of thoughts and emotions lies a profound stillness that is always present. This isn't a stillness you create, it's a stillness you recognize and return to, the ground of being that remains undisturbed regardless of external circumstances. Now, I want to explore the practical methods for integrating sacred silence into your daily life, even amid busy schedules and demanding responsibilities. This isn't about withdrawing from active engagement with the world, but about establishing a rhythm that alternates between inspired action and receptive stillness, a pattern that reflects the natural pulsation of the universe itself, between expression and absorption. If you've experienced moments when your most valuable insights or creative solutions came not through effort or analysis, but through moments of receptive silence, share by writing "Wisdom in Silence" in the comments below. One of the most liberating truths on the abundance journey is recognizing that financial anxiety, that persistent worry about money that plagues so many lives, doesn't actually stem from a lack of money. This revelation transforms everything. Your financial anxiety arises not from insufficient funds, but from a fundamental disconnection with the source of all provision. This understanding completely reframes the solution. If the problem were truly about lacking money, then more money would solve it permanently. Yet we've all observed people who increase their income significantly while their anxiety remains unchanged or even intensifies. This paradox reveals the hidden truth. Financial worry is essentially spiritual disorientation, a forgetting of your connection to the infinite source that sustains all life. Behind the scenes of every financial anxiety attack is this core misperception: I am alone and separate from my source of provision. When you believe your survival depends solely on limited personal resources and abilities, anxiety becomes not just understandable, but inevitable. The breakthrough comes when you recognize this anxiety as a signal, not of financial inadequacy, but of spiritual disconnection that needs addressing. The journey toward freedom involves examining how deeply you've internalized the collective belief in separation and scarcity. Most people operate from an unconscious assumption that they're disconnected units trying to extract resources from a reluctant universe. This fundamental misunderstanding creates a perpetual state of insecurity that no amount of external accumulation can resolve. The transformation begins when you recognize that you exist within an intelligent, responsive field of infinite provision, not separate from it, but continuously sustained by it. What makes this understanding so revolutionary is how it completely inverts your approach to financial challenges. Instead of frantically searching for external solutions when money concerns arise, you recognize the primary need is to restore your conscious connection with Source. This doesn't mean ignoring practical action, but it ensures that your actions emerge from centered wisdom rather than reactive fear. The mindset shift is profound. Financial healing begins with spiritual reconnection, not just strategic planning. The revelation extends even deeper when you understand that mental peace is not the result of financial abundance. It's actually the foundation that makes true provision possible. An anxious consciousness simply cannot receive freely, regardless of how much opportunity surrounds it. This explains the common experience of missing valuable openings during periods of worry or stress. The contracted, fearful state of anxiety creates a kind of perceptual blindness that prevents you from recognizing the very solutions and opportunities that could alleviate your concerns. Consider the profound impact this understanding has on your daily financial experience. When you approach money matters from a state of inner turmoil, you literally repel potential provision. Your anxiety broadcasts a specific frequency that attracts matching experiences of struggle, limitation, and scarcity. The transformation begins when you make peace your first priority, not as a luxury to enjoy after your financial problems are solved, but as the essential precondition for their resolution. The decision-making process completely transforms under this paradigm. Most people make financial choices from a reactive place, responding to pressure, fear, or urgent necessity. But when you establish mental peace as your foundation, you access an entirely different quality of discernment. Solutions appear that weren't visible through the clouded lens of anxiety. Synchronicities increase, intuitive guidance strengthens, creativity expands. None of these resources can operate effectively when your consciousness is constricted by fear. What's fascinating is observing how this principle manifests in real-world financial transformations. Behind every remarkable story of someone who overcame significant financial challenges, you'll typically find they experienced a fundamental shift in consciousness before their external circumstances improved. Something within them settled into peace despite outward appearances. They reconnected with Source despite seemingly valid reasons for anxiety. And from that reconnection, practical pathways emerged that weren't previously visible or accessible. The revelations emerge as you begin practicing this consciousness in the midst of actual financial challenges. You'll discover that it's possible to experience genuine peace even while facing apparent limitation, not through denial or avoidance, but through remembering your true relationship with the infinite source. This remembrance isn't intellectual, it's a felt reconnection that naturally dissolves anxiety and opens receptivity to provision in all its forms. The journey toward embodying this truth involves developing what might be called spiritual sovereignty, the capacity to maintain your conscious connection with Source, regardless of external fluctuations or appearances. This sovereignty doesn't make you impervious to challenges, but it ensures that challenges no longer disconnect you from the very source of their solution. You remain anchored in the awareness that transcends temporary conditions while still engaging practically with those conditions. Now, I want to explore the practical methods for maintaining mental peace, specifically during financial stress or uncertainty. This isn't about ignoring legitimate concerns or avoiding necessary action. It's about accessing the optimal state of consciousness from which effective solutions can emerge and provision can be received without the interference of anxiety-based resistance. If you've noticed how your financial situation seems to reflect your mental state, how things often work out better when you're peaceful regardless of circumstances, share by writing "Peace attracts provision" in the comments below. The implications of understanding how your mental state affects financial flow run even deeper than most realize. When your mind is in a perpetual state of restlessness, constantly worrying, analyzing, strategizing, and projecting worst-case scenarios, you're literally creating an energetic barrier to the very abundance you seek. This isn't because some external force is judging your anxiety and withholding blessings as punishment. The mechanism is far more scientific and precise. Anxiety naturally generates a closed, contracted vibrational frequency that simply cannot receive what operates at the higher frequency of abundance. Think of it like trying to tune a radio to a specific station. While constantly changing the dial, you can't receive a clear signal because you're not staying on the frequency where that broadcast exists. The divine flow of good isn't being withheld from you. You're simply tuned to a different channel through your restless mental activity. The revelation that transforms lives is recognizing that this restlessness isn't protecting you from disaster as it claims. It's actually creating the very conditions of limitation it fears. Behind the scenes of this pattern is a fascinating paradox. You cannot solve financial problems with the same quality of consciousness that perceives them as problems. Albert Einstein captured this principle perfectly when he observed that problems cannot be solved at the same level of thinking that created them. Your anxious, analytical mind is brilliant at identifying what's wrong and what might go wrong, but it's fundamentally incapable of accessing the creative solutions that exist beyond its limited perspective. Those solutions emerge only when the mind temporarily settles into peace. The transformation begins with a counterintuitive decision, making peace your financial priority. This doesn't mean ignoring practical concerns or avoiding necessary action. It means recognizing that your state of consciousness is actually more determinative of your financial outcomes than most of the external actions you might take. When you're aligned with the peace that allows good to flow, you naturally make better decisions, recognize opportunities others miss, receive intuitive guidance, and attract resources that previously seemed unavailable. What makes this approach so revolutionary is how it completely inverts the conventional relationship between peace and financial stability. Most people believe the sequence is achieve financial security, then experience peace. But spiritual understanding reveals the true sequence. Establish inner peace first, then experience the financial flow that naturally emerges from that state. This isn't magical thinking. It's recognizing how consciousness actually operates as the primary causative force in your experience. Consider the profound impact this understanding has on your daily approach to financial challenges. When money concerns arise, your first response isn't to frantically search for external solutions, but to restore your state of inner calm and clarity. From this centered place, intuitive guidance about appropriate action emerges naturally. The blueprint shifts from solve first, then feel peace, to find peace first, then appropriate solutions will reveal themselves. This single reversal can completely transform your financial experience. The mindset shift involves recognizing peace not as a luxury or indulgence, but as your most practical financial strategy. When your mind is churning with worry, you literally cannot access your full intelligence, creativity, or intuitive wisdom, all essential resources for creating abundance. The biological reality is that anxiety activates your sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight response, shutting down the prefrontal cortex, where your highest decision-making capacities reside. Making peace your priority isn't spiritual bypass, it's neurological wisdom. What's fascinating is observing how this principle manifests in real financial turnarounds. The person who responds to financial pressure by first restoring their inner equilibrium makes fundamentally different choices than one who reacts from panic. They're more likely to see creative opportunities, negotiate effectively, attract supportive relationships, and receive unexpected provision. This isn't random good fortune, but the natural result of operating from a consciousness that's resonant with, rather than resistant to, the flow of abundance. The journey toward embodying this truth involves developing what might be called peace muscles, the capacity to return to centeredness even amid legitimate financial concerns. This doesn't happen through passive hoping, but through active practices that literally rewire your nervous system and energetic field. These include specific forms of meditation, conscious breathing, body-centered awareness, nature immersion, and spiritual connection, all approaches that temporarily interrupt the mind's habitual anxiety patterns. The revelations emerge as you begin making peace your actual priority during financial challenges rather than just an abstract ideal. You'll discover that solutions often appear precisely when you stop desperately searching for them, not because you've given up, but because you've shifted to a state of consciousness where receptivity replaces resistance. This isn't abandoning responsibility, it's accessing a higher order of intelligence that operates beyond the limitations of anxious thinking. Now, I want to explore the practical methods for cultivating this peace-centered approach to finances in everyday situations. This includes specific practices for calming your nervous system when money worries arise, techniques for distinguishing between productive planning and unproductive anxiety, and approaches for maintaining your connection with Source even when facing genuine financial challenges or uncertainty. If you've experienced how making peace your first response to financial pressure, rather than frantic action or worry, has somehow opened doors or created solutions that weren't visible before, share by writing "Peace Before Action" in the comments below. The culmination of all spiritual understanding about abundance reveals something profound that transcends mere personal gain. When we peel back the layers of these teachings, we discover that the ultimate purpose isn't simply to help you accumulate more wealth or achieve financial freedom. The deeper intention behind all authentic spiritual guidance about money is to transform you into an open channel of divine good, a conscious conduit through which universal abundance can flow into the world, blessing not only your life, but countless others. This revelation completely shifts the focus from getting to becoming. Behind the scenes of true prosperity consciousness is this understanding: you're not here primarily to acquire, but to express. The highest purpose isn't to pile up resources for personal security or comfort, but to develop the consciousness that allows unlimited good to flow through you, without obstruction. This doesn't diminish your personal experience of abundance, quite the opposite. It expands it beyond what could be possible through mere accumulation. The journey toward embodying this truth involves a profound identity shift. Most people unconsciously operate as separate units, trying to extract good from a seemingly reluctant universe. But the spiritual perspective reveals that you are, by design, a channel, a specific, unique expression point through which divine intelligence can distribute its unlimited good. This isn't abstract philosophy, it's recognizing your actual function in the cosmic order. You're not here to grab and hold, but to receive and transmit. What makes this understanding so revolutionary is how it transforms your relationship with both receiving and giving. When you recognize yourself as a channel rather than a terminal point, receiving becomes not just about personal benefit, but about increased capacity to give. Giving becomes not sacrifice or loss, but your natural function. This perspective creates a continuous flow rather than the start-stop pattern that characterizes most people's financial experience. Periods of accumulation followed by periods of depletion. The transformation begins when you understand what being a channel truly means, not resisting or clinging to the flow. Most people unwittingly block abundance through one of these two patterns, either resisting what tries to come in through unworthiness, fear, or judgment, or desperately clinging to what has already come through anxiety, hoarding, or attachment. The channel consciousness involves neither resistance nor attachment. It simply allows continuous flow, trusting implicitly in the inexhaustible nature of the source. Consider the profound impact this understanding has on everyday financial decisions. When faced with unexpected expenses, the channel consciousness doesn't contract in fear or resentment, but remains open, trusting that what flows out creates space for new inflow. When receiving unexpected abundance, this consciousness doesn't grasp or cling, but receives with gratitude, while remaining ready to circulate it appropriately. This balanced relationship with flow, neither blocking nor hoarding, creates the optimal conditions for continuous abundance. The mindset shift involves recognizing that the source is truly inexhaustible. This isn't blind faith, but spiritual understanding based on observing how the universe actually operates. Nature demonstrates this principle constantly. The The sun doesn't diminish by shining, the ocean doesn't empty by evaporating, the apple tree doesn't deplete by bearing fruit. These aren't poetic metaphors, but revelations of how divine supply functions, not through limited reserves, but through continuous unlimited expression. What's fascinating is how this channel consciousness resolves the artificial conflict between spiritual development and material prosperity. Many spiritual traditions have created a false dichotomy, suggesting that material abundance somehow impedes spiritual growth. But when understood properly, becoming a clear channel for divine good unifies these dimensions. Material provision becomes not a distraction from spiritual purpose, but a natural expression of it, the visible manifestation of your alignment with the source of all good. The journey toward embodying this truth involves examining all the subtle ways you might still be operating from the old paradigm of separation and lack. Many people intellectually embrace abundance principles while emotionally remaining stuck in scarcity patterns. The fear that the flow might stop, the anxiety about future provision, the subtle belief that there's not enough to go around. Transforming these deeply embedded patterns requires more than affirmation. It requires a fundamental reinvention of your relationship with both giving and receiving. Behind every person who maintains consistent abundance consciousness is this hidden truth. They've shifted their primary identity from being a separate individual trying to accumulate enough to being a conscious channel for unlimited good. This shift doesn't happen through wishful thinking or mere intellectual agreement. It requires deliberate practice, consciously choosing channel consciousness in everyday situations until it becomes your default orientation rather than an occasional spiritual insight. Now, I want to explore the practical methods for developing and strengthening this channel consciousness in your daily life. This isn't about adopting a passive approach to finances. Quite the contrary. The channel consciousness is supremely active, but operates from a fundamentally different premise than conventional financial strategies. It focuses not on techniques for accumulation, but on removing the internal barriers that block the natural flow of abundance. If you've experienced moments when you felt yourself functioning as a clear channel for something greater than yourself, when abundance seemed to flow through you rather than just to you, share by writing Divine Channel in the comments below. One of the most liberating aspects of the channel consciousness comes from this profound realization. You are a steward of good, not its origin. This perspective completely transforms your relationship with abundance by releasing you from the burdensome illusion that you personally create, maintain, or control the flow of prosperity in your life. When you truly understand that you're managing resources that ultimately come from and belong to a greater source, an extraordinary freedom emerges. Freedom from the gripping fear of loss that haunts so many, even those with substantial material wealth. Think about the hidden pressure most people carry around money and resources. The constant anxiety about losing what they've acquired, the exhausting vigilance to protect what they believe is theirs, the identity, entanglement with specific amounts or forms of wealth. All of this mental and emotional strain stems from a fundamental misunderstanding about your relationship with abundance. You haven't created the good in your life through personal power alone. You've received it through alignment with its true source. The transformation begins when you embrace the role of steward rather than owner. A steward recognizes their responsibility to manage resources wisely, while simultaneously acknowledging that these resources don't ultimately belong to them. This consciousness creates a profound psychological shift. You can care deeply about your financial life without the desperate attachment that creates suffering. You can make prudent decisions without the paralyzing fear that if you make a mistake, everything will be lost forever. Behind the scenes of this mindset revolution is a remarkable paradox. When you release the desperate grip of ownership psychology, you actually become a more effective manager of abundance. Why? because fear-based financial decisions are typically reactive and short-sighted, while stewardship decisions tend to be more aligned with greater wisdom and longer-term vision. The steward asks different questions. How can these resources create the greatest good, rather than, how can I hold on to this at all costs? What makes this understanding so powerful is how it resolves the tension between responsibility and trust. The ownership mindset swings between extremes, either controlling everything through anxious micromanagement or abandoning responsibility through passive fatalism. The stewardship consciousness finds the balanced middle path, taking full responsibility for managing resources wisely, while simultaneously trusting that the ultimate source of those resources remains inexhaustible and ever available. The journey toward embodying this truth involves a fundamental re-examination of your relationship with possessions and prosperity. Many carry an unconscious scarcity program that manifests as subtle hoarding tendencies, excessive attachment to specific forms of wealth, or identity fusion with financial status. Transforming these patterns requires more than intellectual understanding. It requires a conscious decision to practice stewardship rather than ownership in everyday financial decisions. Interwoven with this stewardship consciousness is another profound revelation. Giving and receiving are not separate activities, but unified aspects of the same law. In the divine economy, these apparently opposite movements are actually one continuous flow seen from different perspectives. This understanding completely transforms how you approach both sides of the abundance equation. Most people experience giving and receiving as distinctly different energies. Giving often feels like loss or sacrifice, while receiving can trigger discomfort, unworthiness, or obligation. The mindset shift reveals that authentic giving and receiving both require the same inner qualities: openness, humility, and faith. When you give with closed energy, from obligation, guilt, or expectation of return, you're not truly giving in alignment with universal law. Similarly, when you receive with closed energy, from entitlement, unworthiness, or failure to acknowledge the source, you're not truly receiving in alignment with that same law. The channel consciousness involves cultivating the capacity to both give and receive with the same open, humble, faithful energy. Consider the profound impact this understanding has on your everyday abundance experience. When you recognize giving and receiving as unified aspects of one law, artificial barriers dissolve. You no longer need to calculate whether you're giving too much or receiving too little. You simply participate in the continuous flow, trusting that the movement itself creates balance. This doesn't mean abandoning discernment about how resources are directed, but it does mean releasing the anxious accounting that characterizes most people's relationship with prosperity. What's fascinating is observing how this balanced approach to giving and receiving creates an entirely different experience of abundance. People who master this consciousness often report that resources seem to arrive precisely when needed, sometimes through unexpected channels. This isn't magical coincidence, but the natural result of participating consciously in the unified law of circulation. Maintaining openness in both directions creates maximum flow rather than the constriction that comes from imbalance in either direction. The revelations emerge as you begin practicing this unified consciousness in daily situations. You'll notice that when you give with the same open, trusting energy with which you receive, giving no longer feels depleting but generative. Similarly, when you receive with the same gracious, humble energy with which you give, receiving no longer triggers discomfort but grateful acknowledgement. The artificial separation between these movements dissolves, revealing them as different expressions of the same divine principle. Now, I want to explore how this understanding of stewardship and unified giving-receiving translates into practical financial decisions. This isn't abstract philosophy, but a fundamentally different approach to everything from daily spending to long-term financial planning. When these principles become your operational foundation rather than merely inspirational concepts, your entire relationship with abundance undergoes a revolution that impacts every aspect of your material life. If you've experienced the freedom that comes from recognizing yourself as a steward rather than an owner of the abundance in your life, share by writing "Faithful Steward" in the comments below. One of the most empowering revelations about channel consciousness is that it doesn't require any minimum threshold of resources to begin. This insight liberates you from the common trap of postponement. When I have more, then I'll start being generous, or once I reach financial security, then I'll begin to share. The transformative truth is that you don't need to wait until you have much to be a channel for divine good. You can begin right now, exactly where you are, with whatever you currently possess, whether that seems abundant or limited by worldly standards. This understanding cuts through one of the most persistent myths about prosperity, the belief that significant impact requires significant resources. Behind the scenes of this limiting perspective is a fundamental misunderstanding about how the universal laws of abundance actually operate. The channel capacity is developed not by having more to channel, but by channeling what you already have, regardless of its apparent size or value. Just as a muscle grows stronger through consistent use rather than waiting until it's already strong, your capacity as a channel expands through practice, not postponement. The journey toward embodying this truth involves examining the subtle ways you might be delaying your full participation in the flow of abundance. Many people unconsciously believe they're not ready yet, not wealthy enough, not secure enough, not knowledgeable enough to begin expressing channel consciousness. This delay tactic actually blocks the very expansion it claims to be waiting for. The breakthrough comes when you recognize that beginning where you are, with what you have, is precisely what creates the conditions for increase. What makes this understanding so revolutionary is how it democratizes abundance principles. If significant resources were required to start functioning as a channel, these spiritual laws would favor the already wealthy. But the cosmic economy operates on entirely different principles than human economics. In this divine system, your starting point is irrelevant. What matters is your willingness to participate in the flow, your consciousness while doing so, and your faith in the process itself. The widow's mite can generate more expansion than the billionaire's foundation when offered with greater consciousness. Consider the profound implications of this truth. The universe responds to the useful channel by expanding its capacity. This isn't arbitrary spiritual reward, but precise universal law. When you demonstrate that you know what to do with what you have, when you use your current resources, however modest, with wisdom, generosity, and aligned purpose, the universe naturally increases your capacity to receive and distribute more. This principle operates with mathematical precision. Capacity expands in direct proportion to conscious, effective use. The mindset shift involves recognizing that usefulness as a channel isn't measured by quantity, but by quality of consciousness. You might be channeling seemingly small amounts with such clarity, joy, and integrity that your impact far exceeds someone channeling larger amounts with less consciousness. This quality over quantity perspective liberates you from comparison with others and focuses your attention where true power lies, not on the amount flowing through you, but on the consciousness with which you allow and direct that flow. What's fascinating is observing how this principle manifests in real-world abundance transformations. Behind every remarkable expansion of prosperity is this hidden pattern. Someone began functioning as a conscious channel, right where they were, with whatever they had available. They didn't wait for better conditions or greater resources. They simply started expressing channel consciousness with what was at hand. This initiation, however modest it might have appeared externally, set in motion forces that eventually expanded their capacity beyond what could have been strategically planned. The revelations emerge as you begin applying this understanding to your current circumstances. You'll discover that opportunities to function as a channel for good exist everywhere, regardless of your financial situation. These might involve traditional giving of money or resources, but they could equally involve sharing your time, attention, knowledge, connections, encouragement, or creative energy. What matters isn't the form, but the consciousness, the recognition that you're allowing something greater than yourself to flow through you for the benefit of life around you. Behind every masterful manifester is this spiritual technology. They understand that God, or universal intelligence, gives more to those who know what to do with what they have. This isn't because the divine plays favorites, but because knowing what to do with resources indicates an aligned consciousness that naturally attracts greater flow. It's similar to how water naturally flows more abundantly through clear, open channels than through those that are constricted or clogged. The expansion of your capacity happens not through worthiness, but through alignment with how energy actually moves in an intelligent universe. The journey of developing this consciousness involves noticing all the existing opportunities to be a channel right where you are. These might be so familiar or seemingly insignificant that you've overlooked them. The practice involves bringing fresh awareness, gratitude, and intention to these current channels while simultaneously remaining open to new ones appearing. This balanced approach, fully utilizing present opportunities while remaining receptive to expanding ones, creates the optimal conditions for growth. Now, I want to explore the practical expressions of channeled consciousness in everyday situations, regardless of your current financial circumstances. This isn't about creating artificial scenarios for giving, but about recognizing the authentic opportunities that already exist in your life. When you begin approaching these with conscious awareness of your role as a channel rather than an endpoint, remarkable shifts occur in both your inner experience and your outer circumstances. If you've noticed how using what you have with consciousness and purpose, no matter how modest it might seem, has somehow led to unexpected expansion or increase in your life, share by writing "Starting Now" in the comments below. The ultimate transformation in abundance consciousness happens when you make this profound shift, deliberately placing yourself in service to good. This isn't about occasional acts of giving or periodic generosity. It's about a fundamental reorientation of your entire life purpose. When you consciously decide that your primary function is to serve as a channel for divine good, something remarkable happens. Your very existence becomes living testimony that God not only provides but actively seeks human vessels through which to pour abundance into the world. This perspective reveals something extraordinary about the nature of divine economy. The infinite source doesn't merely respond to human needs, it actively seeks expression points, conscious, willing channels that can receive and distribute its unlimited good. Behind the scenes of universal abundance is this hidden truth. God is not waiting to be convinced to provide. God is waiting for aligned vessels through which provision can flow without distortion or obstruction. The journey toward embodying this truth involves a fundamental identity revolution. You no longer see yourself primarily as a separate entity seeking to extract good from the universe for personal benefit. Instead, you recognize yourself as a unique, irreplaceable distribution point in the cosmic network of abundance. A specific expression of divine intelligence with particular gifts, connections, and opportunities that no other channel possesses in quite the same way. What makes this understanding so powerful is how it reveals the deeper purpose behind your existence. You weren't created merely to survive, accumulate, or even to experience personal prosperity. You were designed to be a distinctive conduit through which unlimited good can flow into the world in ways that would be impossible without your particular presence. This doesn't diminish your personal experience of abundance. It infuses it with meaning, purpose, and connection to something far greater than individual acquisition or achievement. The revelations emerge as you begin consciously living from this service orientation. You'll discover that when you place yourself in service to good without reservation or condition, the universe responds with extraordinary support. Doors open that previously seemed locked. Resources appear that weren't visible before. Synchronicities increase in frequency and significance. These aren't random coincidences, but natural manifestations of alignment with your true function in the cosmic order. If you've experienced moments when placing yourself in service to something greater than personal gain somehow paradoxically increased your own sense of abundance and well-being, share by writing "joyful service" in the comments below. As we arrive at this moment together, I'm deeply grateful that you've journeyed with me through these transformative principles of abundance consciousness. What we've explored isn't just information, it's an invitation to a fundamentally different way of experiencing life, prosperity, and your relationship with the divine source of all good. If these teachings have resonated in your soul, if you felt something stir within you as we've discussed these timeless truths, I'd love for you to become part of our community of conscious creators. Subscribe to join us on this continuing exploration of spiritual abundance principles that can genuinely transform your experience from the inside out. The conversation we've started here doesn't end with this video. In fact, the real journey begins when you take these principles and begin applying them in your daily life. If something specific touched you or created an aha moment, share by writing "Abundance Awakened" in the comments. I'd love to know which aspect of this teaching connected most deeply with your spirit. Your appreciation through a simple like creates ripples far beyond what might be visible. It helps these teachings reach others who may be ready for precisely this message at precisely this moment in their journey. I've prepared another exploration that builds beautifully on what we've discussed today. It takes these principles even deeper, revealing the practical application of abundance consciousness in specific life situations. Click the video appearing now to continue this journey of awakening with me. The path of abundance is calling. Let's walk it together.